Okay, today is a lecture day. So let's jump right into these discussion questions. Number one, why do you think Macbeth kills Macduff's family? Do you think it's a good idea? Why or why not? So we're looking at Act 4, Scene 1, line 150. This is on page 1282. Here, Macbeth receives a message at line 141. Bring you word, Macduff is fled to England. Macbeth, fled to England? Lennox, my good lord. Macbeth, aside means he's talking to himself. Time thou anticipatest my dread exploits, which means um, he wasn't expecting Macduff to act so fast. The flighty purpose never is or took unless the deed go with it, which means he fled. Well, then he must have had some reason to flee. From this moment, the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand. So I'll do whatever my heart tells me to do. And even now, to crown my thoughts with acts, be it thought and done. So here's what I'm going to do. The castle of Macduff I will surprise. We know that Macduff is a noble. He's a thane, which means he has a castle. So the castle of Macduff I will surprise, seize upon Fife, his castle, give to the edge of the sword his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line. So Macbeth is going to attack Macduff's castle and kill his wife and children and kill anyone who sets to inherit Macduff's title. No boasting like a fool. This deed I'll do before this purpose cool. So I'm going to do this before I change my mind. So the first part of this question is, why does Macbeth kill Macduff's family? He's fled to England, which to Macbeth seems very suspicious. If Macduff is a loyal, uh, obedient subject, why would he run away? So to Macbeth, this tells him that Macduff is planning treason, is planning to fight him. Okay, so now Macduff is an enemy. What to do? Uh, well, Macbeth could try to kill Macduff, but Macduff is in England. That's kind of hard. So now he has Macduff's castle and his family. He could try to take his family hostage, use his wife and children as bartering chips to try to negotiate with Macduff. But Macduff has run away and abandoned his wife and children. So maybe he wouldn't care that much about his wife and children. Like abandoning them kind of means that he thinks something else is more important than his own family. So using Macduff's family to negotiate may not be very effective. But in this case, Macbeth isn't really thinking about strategy. He's thinking about revenge. Right? When he hears Macduff has fled, he's surprised, he's shocked, and he feels angry. So his main motivation seems to be revenge, and only secondarily, maybe he's thinking about strategy. So he's killing Macduff's family because he's mad. The second part of that question is, does that make sense? And that is the strategy part of this question. There's one more thing he could do. He could just leave them alone. But there is a political consideration in his decision. He's going to kill everyone who could inherit Macduff's title. So he isn't just killing individual people, he's killing off this entire noble house. And this does make political sense. Um, if Macduff becomes his enemy, then he has to worry about any of Macduff's children or inheritors, whether they will also be his enemy. So this part makes sense. But his wife, I guess Macduff's wife could remarry. But then if Macduff's wife remarries, would that child still inherit Macduff's title? So we see that uh, Macbeth is commingling personal revenge and political considerations. The political considerations do make sense. The personal revenge, however, maybe would just serve to make Macbeth's image even worse, to make him like a more bloodthirsty tyrant than he already is seen as. I do think that's like maybe the one aspect of his own actions that Macbeth doesn't really care about, his own personal image. Remember, he comes to power amid scandal, right? A dead king. People are already suspecting that maybe it was Macbeth who killed him because Macbeth did kill the suspects, right? The king's guards. He said that those two dead guards are the people who killed the king. We don't know. So I think from that moment on, maybe Macbeth didn't really care about his own image that much. But if we were thinking about whether it's a good idea, that part may make us hesitate. That part may not be such a good idea. But the political considerations are sound. Okay, other thoughts or questions about this one? All right, let's move on to number 2. Is Macduff a traitor? So this has a slightly different meaning from question 1. Macduff has fled to England. Does that make him a traitor? Maybe. But we then have a scene with Macduff's wife and children. This is Act 4, Scene 2. Oh, I was already here. There, the very next scene. And we open with Lady Macduff asking, "Why did my husband run?" So Macduff ran away so fast, he didn't even tell his wife and kids. He didn't just say, "I'm going, you stay." He just disappeared. He ghosted them. So Lady Macduff is like, "Why did he go? Is this really wise? To leave his wife, to leave his babes, his mansion, and his titles in a place from whence himself does fly? He loves us not. He wants the natural touch, which means he lacks natural emotion to be able to just abandon his wife and kids like this. So his wife is also kind of pissed that Macduff would just do this. And so then we get a dialogue between mother and son. And we should imagine that his son, or that Macduff's son, is not maybe like a preteen or early teenager. And then their son asks, "Was my father a traitor, mother?" And she says, "Aye, that he was," which means yes, he was. "What is a traitor?" "Why, one that swears and lies. Someone who gives their word and then breaks the promise." By the way, the word why is not a question. The word why kind of means well. It's an interjection, 语助词. And be all traitors that do so? So it is everyone who makes a promise and then breaks the promise a traitor? Everyone that does so is a traitor and must be hanged. So this conversation is not very serious. It's between a mother and son. Uh, so like by the end, Lady Macduff is like, God help thee, poor monkey, which means, oh, you good child, you guai, right? Poor prattler, how thou talks. Again, like a mother doting on her child. But if we take this definition seriously, all who swear and then lie are traitors. Is Macduff a traitor? When marrying his wife, he has sworn to, through sickness and in health, stay by her side, whatever. And then now he's gone. So he has broken his marriage oath. When becoming the Thane of Fife, he also has sworn allegiance to his king, not to the person of the king, King Duncan, but to swear allegiance to the office of the king, no matter who is the king. And so by running away to England, he has also broken his, well, he hasn't actually done anything yet. He just went to England. So he's like almost breaking his oath of allegiance to the king, who is currently Macbeth. So by that definition, then yes, Macduff is a traitor, and almost a traitor. But then look at this: enter murderers. So Macbeth's people have come, and the first murderer says Macduff is a traitor, and Macduff's son replies, "Thou liest, thou shag-haired villain! You're lying, you evil person." You can imagine a child saying something like this, right? You're lying, 你说谎. And then for this, he gets killed. So the child, even though he kind of like has been following his mother's definition and they've been kind of talking about this question, is Macduff a traitor? In the end, he himself doesn't believe that his father is a traitor. Um, so for us, is Macduff a traitor then? Apparently, his Lady Macduff's definition is not generally applicable. It's more like a hypothetical conversation. So that even when her son agrees during the conversation, in the real world, he disagrees. So if we take the general meaning of traitor, right, the meaning of like going against your king or your boss or your country, Macduff has fled to England, but he hasn't actually done anything against Macbeth yet. So by that definition, his son seems to be correct. This father, Macduff, is not currently a traitor, which goes to show how vindictive Macbeth is. Macbeth doesn't really have a legal justification for killing Macduff or his family. He has a, a suspicion, right? Macduff may do something, but he hasn't actually done anything yet. So these two scenes put together also show how Macbeth is a bloodthirsty, undeserving king. Okay, do you have other thoughts or questions about number two? Okay, moving on. Macduff passes Malcolm's test. Malcolm, remember, is Duncan's son, so he is the next rightful king of Scotland. So Macduff passes Malcolm's test, but what do you think failure might have looked like and why? So in other words, it's a test. You can pass or you can fail. We see Macduff pass. What would it look like to see Macduff fail? Let's look at Act 4, Scene 3. The very next scene. So, yes, Macduff has fled to England. Who else is in England? Malcolm. The other son of Duncan, Donalbain, is in Ireland. So, okay, Macduff has come to Malcolm, and he's here to try to persuade Malcolm to go fight Macbeth to win back his country. But Malcolm, very smartly, says to Macduff, "You have loved him well. He hath not touched you yet. I am young, but something you may deserve of him through me, and wisdom to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry God." So Malcolm is saying, yes, yes, it's terrible that Macbeth is king, but hey, weren't you just near him? Doesn't he like you? You're still alive, so why should I trust you? Maybe you might use me and offer me to him to make him happy again. So that's the reason for the test. Malcolm needs to know that Macduff isn't just trying to trick him to bring him to Macbeth, but that he actually does want to support Malcolm in fighting Macbeth. Macduff, I am not treacherous, Malcolm, but Macbeth is. Um, okay, so here the test kind of begins here. Malcolm, I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. A yoke is the thing you add onto a horse or an ox to help to make it pull the cart, to pull a cart or to pull like a hoe for farming. What do you call that thing? 架在那个马脖子或牛脖子上面，让它拉马车的那个东东。马鞍，那马鞍不是做的吗？人做的吗？Anyway, that's what a yoke is. So a yoke is a symbol of um, involuntary servitude, slavery, being oppressed by someone else. So I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. I think Scotland under Macbeth is not free. But, and here's the beginning of the test, for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before, more suffer, and more sundry ways than ever by him that shall succeed. Basically saying, if I fight Macbeth and win, and I become king, Scotland will be even worse. So tread upon the tyrant's head means to like step on his head. Wear it on my sword means to stick his sword, to put Macbeth's head on top of his sword, basically to win the battle. But he's saying, him that shall succeed, he's talking about himself. Malcolm is saying, I would be a worse king than Macbeth. Why? Right? Black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. So I'm much worse than Macbeth. Malcolm says, I grant him. So I admit that he is bloody, luxurious, which means wasteful, avaricious, which means greedy, false, deceitful. These two are the same thing. Sudden, which means like against the natural order. Malicious, which means evil. Smacking of every sin that has a name. But there's no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness, which means my desire, my sexual desire, my lust. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, which means mothers, your maids, which means single, unmarried women, could not fill up the cistern of my lust, and my desire all continent impediments would o'erbear that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such an one to reign. Okay, so his first argument for why he shouldn't be king is, I have too strong a sexual desire. I'd ruin every woman I see. Macduff responds, yeah, no, that's not good. But fear not yet to take upon you what is yours. Don't worry too much. You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty and yet seem cold. The time you may so hoodwink. If you do become king, you could use all the women you want and still project an image of being uh, cold. Here means lacking the heat of lust. The footnote says chaste, 贞操的. The time you may so hoodwink, which means you may hoodwink the time, which means you may cheat the age. You can make people believe that you are not lustful. We have willing dames enough. Wow. We have enough women who are willing to sleep with you. There cannot be that vulture in you to devour so many as will to greatness dedicate themselves, finding it so inclined. We have more than enough women for you. So Macduff's first answer is, yeah, no, that's not good, but it's not that bad either. We can accept that kind of king. So Malcolm says the next point, with this, so along with my lust, there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a stanchless avarice, greediness, that were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels and this other's house. And my more having would be as a sauce to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them for wealth. So here Malcolm is saying, in addition to being lustful, I'm also incredibly greedy. I'd kill nobles for their land. I'd steal their jewels and their house and their castles. I'd start fights between people just so that I could defeat them and get their money. Okay, and then Macduff responds, yeah, no, that's also not good. It's even worse than lust. But don't worry, Scotland hath foisons to fill up your will of your mere own. Scotland is rich enough to satisfy you. All these are portable with other graces weighed. So considering your other virtues, your lust and your greediness are acceptable. So these other graces, these other virtues, Malcolm says, but I have none. I don't have other virtues. The king becoming graces as justice, verity, which means truthfulness, temperance, which means moderation, stableness, bounty, which means generosity, perseverance, mercy, lowliness, which means being humble, humility, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. Fortitude just means courage. I have no relish of them, but abound in the division of each several crime, acting it many ways. So I have none of these virtues. Instead, I'm full of all of the vices. And crime here means a vice, 缺点. And for each vice, I like to do them, each one in many different ways. Nay, had I power, I should pour the sweet milk of concord into hell. Concord means harmony. Uproar the universal peace. Confound all unity on earth. So he's saying, if I were king, I would throw harmony into hell. I would upset peace everywhere, and I would break apart all unity on earth. That sounds kind of bad. So Macduff's response, oh, Scotland, Scotland. Like, why is our next king like this? Can we not have just like another good king after Duncan? And so Malcolm asks Macduff, if such a one be fit to govern, speak. I am as I have spoken. So if you still think I should be king, say it. Macduff's response, fit to govern? No, not to live. So not only are you not fit to be king, you're not fit to be alive. I should kill you right now. And then Macduff goes on to say, "Oh, Scotland, why can't we have another good king? Oh, my breast, thy hope ends here. I have lost all hope for my country." And then Malcolm says, "This noble passion hath from my soul wiped the black scruples, reconciled my thoughts to thy good truth and honor." So, with your last passionate response, "I now believe you. I am no longer suspicious of you. I trust your good truth and your honor." As for all the stuff Malcolm was saying, "I unspeak mine own detraction. Here abjure the taints and blames I laid upon myself for strangers to my nature." So everything I just said that describes myself as evil and bad, I didn't mean that, right? I was not telling you the truth. They are strangers to my nature. They are completely opposite of the kind of person I am. And then he describes who he really is. "I'm yet unknown to woman, never was forsworn," so never broke a promise, "scarcely have coveted what was mine own." This is an interesting sentence. Not only do I not envy others for what they have, I barely enjoy what I have. Scarcely have coveted, which means envied or wanted, what was mine own. 连自己的财产都不太想要了。At no time broke my faith, would not betray the devil to his fellow, and delight no less in truth than life. My first false speaking was this upon myself. The first time I have lied was just now when I was testing you. And then, "Why are you silent?" Macduff is so shocked. "Such welcome and unwelcome things at once, 'tis hard to reconcile." Right? I just lost hope in Scotland's future, and now you've given me all the hope back. Like, I need some time to process. Okay, so the question is, Macduff did pass the test, and the test seems to be that there is a limit to. So okay, so like Malcolm is trying to see if Macduff is trying to get Malcolm in front of Macbeth, or if Macduff really does believe that Malcolm would be the best king for Scotland. So it looks like what he's doing is he's trying to describe himself as the worst possible king. And if Macduff still wants him to be king, then Macduff cannot have the best interests of Scotland in mind. Therefore, he must have some other motive. And that motive is probably to betray him to Macbeth. So if that's the test, what would it look like for Macduff to fail the test? So when Malcolm talks about his lust, Macduff is like, "But fear not, yet to take upon you what is yours." So like, yeah, it's not bad, but we can work with this. When Malcolm says, "I'm also incredibly greedy," Macduff says, "Yeah, this is worse than lust, yet do not fear, but still we can work with this." Finally, when Malcolm says, "I have no virtues and I have all of the vices," I guess if Macduff found some way to like say like, "Even so, you should still be king," that would probably be failing the test. It's showing that maybe Macduff is not looking out for Scotland, he's looking out for Macbeth. So maybe something one way that might look like could be Macduff might say something like, "You may be a terrible person now, but once you sit on the throne, your advisors and your subjects will guide you, or the holy light of God will bless you, or something. Becoming king will make you a better person." Or maybe he might say something like, You might have no hope for yourself, but when you have a son, we can raise your son the right way, and your son will be the next great king of Scotland, or something. Some way to still manage to um, talk about this kind of person like Malcolm becoming the king as a kind of good thing, as better than Macbeth. Yes. So another possible strategy might be Macduff might say, "Yes, you're. That sounds like you're not a good person, but you haven't actually done anything yet." Compared to Macbeth, who probably killed the last king, who at this point Macduff doesn't know that his family has been killed, but like Macbeth probably has done some other weird stuff too. So you're still the better option than Macbeth, right? You may be bad, we don't know. Macbeth is bad, we do know, or something. And these would all be possible ways to fail the test. But no, Macduff really does want what's best for Scotland, right? That's how he ends his speech, right? Not just saying that Malcolm would be a terrible king, we should find another king, but saying, uh, when shalt thou, Scotland, see thy wholesome days again, since that the truest issue of thy throne by his own interdiction stands accursed and does blaspheme his breed? So he's not just talking about where can we find a good king. He's saying, "Oh Scotland, how you must suffer through another bad king." So he does feel passion and pity for his own home country, and that is what makes Malcolm think that Macduff has passed the test. Other thoughts or questions? Okay, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll do 4 and 5, and then I'll talk about the exam and other stuff. Question 4. Why do you think Act 5, Scene 1 is mostly in prose, even Lady Macbeth? And why do you think it ends in verse? So, as we discussed earlier in this class, in Shakespeare's plays, usually people speak in verse if they are nobles or important to the plot and to the themes. Um, in other words, if those lines are important for the actor to remember perfectly. Other characters, especially clowns and fools, speak in prose or like servants. These are people whose lines um, don't have to be remembered exactly as long as the meaning and the jokes, that part is clear. So the almost the entirety of Act 5, Scene 1 is in prose, including Lady Macbeth. Why? Let's take a look at that. Act 5, Scene 1. This is on page 1287. This is the scene where Lady Macbeth sleepwalks. Right? She's asleep. The doctor and a waiting woman notice that Lady Macbeth walks along at night. So the doctor and the waiting woman speak in prose. That's not surprising. But Lady Macbeth also, right? Here, line 35. Out, damn spot, out, I say. One, two. Why then 'tis time to do it. Hell is murky. Fie, my lord, fie, a soldier and afeard? What need we fear who knows it, when none can call our power to account? Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? So Lady Macbeth is dreaming about killing Duncan. The spot is the blood stain on her hands or on her clothing. She's trying to wash it out. It's not coming out. Of course, this is just like the dagger, it's a blood stain of the mind. These lines, I have to say, are incredible. They are like a stream of consciousness. They don't make sense to anybody but Lady Macbeth herself. Each line does not follow from the next, it's jumping around, just like the logic of a dream. So we might say that Lady Macbeth here is speaking in prose because she's not speaking with intention. She is not consciously saying these words. These words are kind of flowing out from her subconscious. So they are also in prose. We can also imagine that on stage, the actor may not have to get every word right as long as they get the meaning and Lady Macbeth's psychology right, her mindset. So not only killing Duncan, but also here, wash your hands, put on your nightgown, look not so pale. I tell you yet again, Banquo's buried. He cannot come out on's grave. So also talking about Banquo's death as well, even though she had no part in that one. That was completely Macbeth's idea. To bed, there's knocking at the gate. Come, 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 give me your hand. What's done cannot be undone. To bed, to bed, to bed. The doctor, will she go now to bed? And the gentlewoman says, directly, which means immediately. I don't know, I just found that kind of funny, right? Lady Macbeth keeps saying to bed, and the doctor asked, okay, so is she going to bed or not? What's done cannot be undone is also a common saying in modern English today. Uh, the toothpaste cannot be put back into the tube. 覆水难收. No use crying over spilled milk. What's done cannot be undone. Okay, so Lady Macbeth is speaking in prose because she doesn't mean what she says. She's just spewing it out of her mind. But here, this last stanza by the doctor, and then the last line by the waiting woman, is in verse, as you can see, right? These are fixed line endings. So why is the entire scene in prose, but this last part in verse? Well, one reason could be because in this scene, the person with the most authority is the doctor. Lady Macbeth is asleep. She doesn't have authority. And in any case, she has to listen to her doctor. So the doctor has the most authority. If anyone speaks in verse, it is the doctor who has the most right to speak in verse. But also look at what he's saying. God, God, forgive us all. Look after her, remove from her the means of all annoyance, which means trouble, and still keep eyes upon her. He is praying to God to help preserve his queen, Lady Macbeth. So the content of what he's saying is also very important, invoking God's protection. So that also would make this more worthy of verse. And then one last thing. Look at these two lines. So good night. My mind she has mated, which means amazed, and amazed my sight. The usually in a Shakespeare play, the verse lines don't rhyme, but here we do have a rhyme: night and sight. So if you remember, I talked about this in the first 2 weeks, but when performing Shakespeare's plays at the time, actors would not get the entire play. They would only get their own lines and maybe one line before, one line after, so that they know who they should follow and who, when they see another actor, which actor that is, when they should leave the stage. But they wouldn't get the whole play. So often, in order to tell the actors and the audience that we're going from one scene to the next, or from one act to the next, we're changing locations, we're changing settings, Shakespeare will use a rhyme. Rhymes are very obvious, right? You hear actors say things for an hour, and then suddenly two lines have a rhyme. It's very clear. This is the end of one scene. We're moving on to the next scene. We're changing locations. That could also be one reason why this part has to be in verse. Because if it's in prose, then you cannot ensure that there would be a rhyme. And so you couldn't tell the audience that, okay, this scene is done, we're doing something else now. And then at the end of a play, Shakespeare will often use two rhymes, four lines, to tell the audience that the play is now ended. Let's jump quickly to the end to see if he does this. Grace, place, one scone. Yes, two rhymes to tell the audience that the play is now ended. Okay, other thoughts or questions about number 4? All right, let's move on to number 5. Last question of the semester, except for the exam. How will you describe Macbeth at these two parts? Why is he like this? Do you think he predicted this? Why or why not? Do you think so? And if so, why did he still do what he has done? Okay, so let's take a look at these parts. Act 5, Scene 3, line 20. Okay, we're on page 1288. Okay, here. So Macbeth has just received word that the English army is approaching. Uh, let's start from here. Satan! This is a very interesting name to call a servant. I'm sick at heart when I behold Satan, I say. This push will cheer me ever or deceit me now. So first of all, we see that Macbeth is kind of distracted. He wants Satan to come and help him put on his armor. But at the same time, he's thinking about things. He's thinking, this is the moment of truth. This attack by the English will either, if I win, I will stay king forever, or if I lose, I will lose my throne, my seat. It will cheer me ever, ever means forever, or deceit me now. I have lived long enough. My way of life is fallen into the seer. Way of life does not mean lifestyle. Way of life means my path of life, the path of my life. Has fallen off the main road into the seer. The yellow leaf, and that which should accompany old age as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, which means many friends. But notice he uses a military metaphor. I must not look to have, so I don't have any of these. But in their stead, which means instead, purses, not loud, but deep. Mouth honor, which means people give me honor by saying things, but they don't mean them. It's only in the mouth. Breath which the poor heart would fain deny and dare not. So he knows that his subjects don't respect him, but they don't dare to go against him. So Macbeth knows what's going on. He knows how hated he is. He knows that it's because of what he has done in his life, right? My way of life. So that's the first part. The second part we can look at is Act 5, Scene 5. This is on page 1290. Satan returns with a message. The queen, my lord, is dead. She kills herself. And Macbeth's response, she should have died hereafter. So she should have died later in time, after this moment. There would have been a time for such a word. But is there a next moment? There would have been a future, but now there is not because of Macbeth's actions and Lady Macbeth's actions and the war. Um, so it's no wonder Lady Macbeth dies now because there is no such thing as a hereafter. There is no future for them anymore. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. So day after day, slowly, right, a petty pace from day to day, it keeps going forward until the very last word spoken by a human, the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. So all of the life that we have lived up to this moment is simply showing us the path towards death. Out, out, brief candle. So Macbeth is comparing a human life to a candle which goes out quickly. Life's but a walking shadow. The word shadow here is related to the word shade, and the word shade is another name for a ghost in hell. In the Greek hell, not the Christian hell, the afterlife, I should say. So when he says life's but a walking shadow, he means we're walking around, but we're already dead. We might as well already be dead. Life is so short. Life is a poor player, an actor, that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. So life is just like an actor who performs for an hour and then disappears. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. The word idiot here does not mean stupid person. Idiot here means, um, today we would call them a mentally disabled person, someone who does not understand what's going on. The word idiot actually comes from the Greek for self. You might recognize the related word idiosyncrasy, which means things that a person does unique to themselves. So the original meaning of the word idiot is someone who does not understand the situation. They only understand their own thoughts and ideas. So uh, that's what Macbeth is saying, right? Life is a tiny part of the vast history of time. It, for a brief moment, it is full of sound and fury, but ultimately it is meaningless. So, okay, the first section was about how Macbeth knows that his actions have led him to have a terrible reputation. He has none of the good things about being a king, he has all of the bad things. This second one is when he hears that his wife has died, he's like, life is too short, nothing we do matters. Um, Time will keep marching forward until we all die. So, why is he like this? What makes a man think these thoughts and talk like this? Probably he has a feeling that his end is near. Right? His wife is dead, so he's staring death in the face. He knows that there's nothing in his life left to cheer him up, nothing that he enjoys. He's clinging on to power for the sake of power. He doesn't even enjoy it. And then now he has lost his wife, his dear partner in crime, the only person on this earth who knows everything that he has done. And so, with that last connection to the world gone, he also is feeling like, what's the point in continuing anymore? It really is. He really is. Maybe you've heard someone say this before. Some people feel like uh, dying and living, there's no difference except I'm too lazy to die. Macbeth is kind of like that, right? I'm alive, I'm dead, I don't really care. It's just that, I'm king, I might as well continue being king. So Macbeth is kind of, I don't want to say it like it's an easy answer, but he's kind of depressed. He gets what he thought he wanted, and it's not what he wanted, right? Be careful what you wish for. So the next part of this question, do you think he predicted this? Why or why not? He did, actually. If you go back to uh, the first week of Macbeth, when he's telling his wife we shouldn't kill Duncan, and he gives several reasons. One reason is that if we do this, it'll come back to haunt us. It'll set a bloody precedent. If this king is killed and we become king, then we could also be killed. So he does predict that maybe this action will not have a good end. Uh, so if he did kind of guess that this might be true, why did he still do what he has done? Why did he kill Duncan anyway? Why did he kill Macduff's family, Banquo? Why did he kill Macduff's family and all the other stuff he has done off stage? Is it purely for a lust for power? Or maybe he feels like this is his fate because the weird sisters have said this, that this is his fate? Maybe in the early days he imagined that he could turn things around, but it turns out he couldn't. People often think things would be different as long as I could blah blah blah. As long as I have control, as long as I can give the orders, I can call the shots, things will be different. It's not true. A king has absolute power, but no power on earth can make people love you or respect you. You have to make them want to love you and respect you. So when Elon Musk kept getting insulted on Twitter and his reaction was to buy Twitter, that would never have worked. You can't force people to love and respect you. So if you are the kind of person who feels like, if only this one thing were different, if only I had control, I could make things better. Maybe the problem isn't whether you have control. Maybe the problem is yourself. In this play, there is fate. We have the three weird sisters. But as we discussed last week, it looks like a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. If Macbeth had ignored everything that they said, maybe he would have had a better life. In the real world, we don't know if there's fate, but you can believe that there is and kind of resign yourself to what your life is, or you can believe that there is no fate, that we create our own fate. We don't have to accept what our life currently is or looks like it will be. You don't have to be Macbeth. If you don't like your life, you can change it. Okay, that's the play. Other thoughts or questions about the play? All right, let's move on to the next thing. Before I talk about the exam, I do want to remind you that you can also do the extra credit at the bottom of Moodle. There are some rules. You do have to follow these rules. But if you are successful, then your lowest grade, semester grade, will be 60. And there is a word count requirement as well. So if you use Google Docs, don't use Google Docs, but if you do use Google Docs, be careful if you run into this error. Um, if you use Google Docs and then save it as a Microsoft Word file, it may count each letter as a word. So it'll tell you 2,000 words, but actually it's only like 300 words. So the best thing is not to use Google Docs, but if you do use Google Docs, be careful about this. I give you the solution to this problem here. And if you do the extra credit, uh, the it's the same deadline as the exam. Although if you do need more time, we can always talk about it. And I will only start adjusting your grade according to the extra credit after I grade everything else. So I'll do the final exam first and then the extra credit. If by this point you are still not receiving Moodle emails, you should really try to solve that problem. When I give your exam a grade, Moodle should send you an email. When I give your extra credit a grade, Moodle should send you an email. You should not have to wait until I update the grades on the course system, and then you come to Moodle, find out what's going on, right? See if you can solve the problem of not receiving Moodle emails. It's very important. Okay, and then one more thing before we jump into the exam. Due to my own personal schedule, I may not have time to grade your final exams until next year. Maybe. Um, so whether or not you need to do the extra credit, you should like think about this carefully. Don't wait until your final exam grade is out. You might not have enough time. Although, hang on, let me think about this. Uh, Next week is week 16, and I have to submit your grades by week 19. So that's what, the first week of January? 16, 17, 18. Okay, so I have to submit your grades by January 15th. So let's assume that I finish grading your exams by like January 7th. And you receive a Moodle email telling you your grade. Then you can ask me for like around 1 week of time to finish the extra credit. Maybe not 14th. That's a bit late. Maybe 13th. Yeah, but it'll take a little bit of planning to optimize your test taking and exam extra credit strategy. Okay, so do you have questions about the schedule? In fact, let me just show you. I have already assumed that you will ask me for extra time for the extra credit. So it says December 25, but actually I am allowing late submissions all the way to January 13th midnight. So as long as you finish and upload before January 13, Moodle will accept your extra credit. And if after January 13 you still need more time, I can give you at most 1 day because I do have to submit your grades by January 15th. Okay. Finally, the final exam. The moment you've all been waiting for. Once again, I must remind you to follow the exam rules. Your exam must be an English essay with multiple non-itemized paragraphs. Has to be in English. 要用英文写. It has to have multiple paragraphs. 不能只写一段. And your paragraphs must be non-itemized. 不能分项列点. Including a numbered or unnumbered list. 如果你分项列点有编号或是没有编号，只要是分项列点，都不是段落，都不是我要的。And it will be graded according to accuracy, logic, and source. What information from the text are you using? What evidence from the text are you using? Where in the assigned text is your evidence? And how does it explain your answer? 你引用什么证据？证据位在指定读物的哪里？然后你这证据如何解释你的答案？ That's how I'm grading your answer. You must give at least 4 different discontinuous pieces of specific evidence from your chosen assigned class reading. So 4 pieces of evidence, specific evidence, not just something general like Macbeth was a bad guy. That's not specific. Something specific, something you can give me an act, scene, and line number for. And they should be discontinuous. So not just 4 lines, but from 4 different places in your chosen play. 举证要至少举4个不同的证据，不能是连续的，而且要能够指出是第几幕、第几景、第几行。The introductions are not assigned， 所以你举证不能从引文，一定要从本文。You can use any resource except other people, but you can ask me questions. If you use additional information from elsewhere, you should also give me the location, web address, page number, or timestamp. Just like the evidence from the text. 如果你开书用别的资源引用那些资源进来，你也要给我资料来源、页码、网址、时间戳记等等类似资讯。Next to each piece of information, not at the bottom. 不是在后面列参考资料，是在行文之间用括号给我这些资讯。If your evidence or information does not have this information, I will ignore it. 没有给我资料来源或是出处，没有直接放在行文之内的话，我会当作它不存在。And if you don't follow these rules, you will get a 0. 以上格式不符就直接0分。AI gives terrible answers, and you may not see why they're terrible, but I will see. I noticed that many of you did use AI for the midterm exam, and that's fine as long as your answer fulfills all of the requirements and your answer makes sense. 想用 AI 可以啦，但是你要确定最后送出的答案有符合考试规定，并且就是逻辑通。But that's the key, right? How do you know if it makes sense or not unless you also read the play and know what it's saying? Okay, and then finally, if you're still not sure what a good or bad answer looks like, here is one bad answer and many good answers. You will want to look at this one. This is also about a Shakespeare play. Let's look at it together, actually. So it begins by answering the question. This is important. In the midterm exam, one person actually did not answer the question. You do have to answer the question. First piece of evidence, there's a quotation, and then there is act, scene, and line numbers. And then there's the explanation of this evidence. Second piece of evidence, same thing, act, scene, lines, quotation, explanation. Third piece, fourth piece, conclusion. This is a good answer. I want your answer to look something like this. You can give more than 4 pieces of evidence if you want, but you do have to have at least 4. Okay, questions about the exam rules? If not, let me show you the question or the questions. The exam will officially begin at noon. You will have until next week midnight. Merry Christmas, by the way. Okay. Please read carefully the exam rules on Moodle before proceeding. Answer 1 of the following questions. If you answer both, I will give you the higher grade. Question 1. In Much Ado About Nothing, how much of Benedict and Beatrice's relationship do you think might be due to true love, and how much is due to manipulation? Why? 53妃里面这2个人的最后就是的恋爱关系，有多少是因为真爱，有多少是因为被操弄？然后为什么这么觉得？ Question 2. In Macbeth, whom do you think is more to blame, Macbeth or Lady Macbeth? Why? You must choose one over the other, not weight both equally. 马克白里面，你觉得谁的责任比较重大？马克白本人还是他太太？为什么是觉得？你必须要选择一个，你不能说2个责任一样重大，你必须要选择其中一个。Questions about the questions? Okay. I mean, I think if you do understand these 2 plays, it was quite easy to guess what the exam questions might be. I'm trying to ask about the most important parts of these 2 plays. Okay, so for the rest of today, you can start thinking and planning your answers. I will be here if you want to ask me things. Please don't talk about the exam questions with your classmates, but you can talk about them with me. If you're not sure about your answer, you can email me a draft and I will give you general comments for your exam and also for your extra credit. 如果你期末考或者是加分作业不确定有没有符合格式要求，你可以先把草稿寄给我，然后我跟你大致讲一下哪边需要改。This does not guarantee that your final grade will always be 100. 我看过给你意见，不保证你的成绩最后一定是满分。Right， 那个只是初步的过滤。If you want to. Okay, good luck on this. And if you're taking my film literature next semester, see you next semester. If you're not, I'm so sorry for you.